So welcome everyone. My name is Susan Holtzman. I am the president and CEO of NAMI Miami-Dade County. We are the Miami-Dade County and Monroe County affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we provide education, advocacy, and support to people living with mental health conditions and their families. So tonight we're focused on education. This is one of our monthly education activities that we do for the general public. We try to present topics that are of general interest and have some opportunity to talk to local experts and to have some back and forth. So we're glad you're here. Before we get started, just a couple of introductions. I want to introduce Eileen Pestana from our team. Eileen is our outreach coordinator, so many of you may have met her. She's out in the community all the time. And we have Sophia Jimenez, who is also on our outreach team. Sophia handles all of our social media. So if you're following us on Instagram or on Facebook or what else? What am I missing?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. That's Sophia doing the posting. She gets a lot of great feedback for her fun and entertaining posts. So thank you, Sophia, for everything that you do. We have a couple of important events coming up that we want to share with you. One, registration is open for our Walk for Mental Health Awareness, which is going to take place in May. At this point, we are not announcing the location yet. We're planning on May 16th as the date, but we're still working on that location. So it's going to be a big surprise. But you can sign up for your walk team already, and we have lots of walk teams that have already signed up. So go ahead and do that. That way we will keep you posted. So there's a link in there to sign up for your walk team. Other important information, next weekend is a really big weekend for us. We have two really exciting events happening. On Saturday morning, February 7th, there is a Harley-Davidson ride. This is a fundraiser that's put on by one of our volunteers. And so there's going to be a group of Harley riders that leave from, I don't think you have to be riding a Harley. You can ride any kind of motorcycle, but they're going to ride from the Harley dealership in Cutler Bay down into the Middle Keys, have lunch and then come back. So you can register to participate in that. If you don't want to ride a motorcycle, but you just want to come on down, we're going to be having a cookout. We're going to be having coffee and doing some outreach. So Sophia will put that information also in the chat. And the other thing is, we encourage you to do your Valentine's Day shopping next weekend. We are having a special event at the Kendra Scott Jewelry Store at Dayland Mall. And so if you come on in, we'll be there. We will be there from 4 to 6, greeting everyone. There's going to be some champagne, some hors d'oeuvres, and we're offering any jewelry that you buy at Kendra Scott, we will get a percentage of that. NAMI will get a percentage. And not only if you buy it in the store at that time, but for 48 hours, right, Sophia? 48 hours, so you can talk.
Yes, 48 hours.
So when does it start and when does it end?
It starts on February 7th and then it continues, correct, Eileen?
Yes, it'll be the code will be active on the website from 12 a.m. on the 7th until 11:59 p.m. on the 8th.
So if you go to the store or purchase anything on the website, we'll give you a website code, or you just mention NAMI when you're purchasing, and a percentage will go to us. So we're very excited. As I said, we will be there in the store. I'll be there. Sophia will be there. Several other members of our staff will be there. If you are buying a Valentine gift for someone else and you want some advice, you have a whole range of people to give you advice on that. But we'd also just love you to come out. Don't buy any jewelry, but say hello. We'd love to see you there. So that's a great opportunity. Sophia, put that link in the chat, and if you can share that with your friends and family, people, we get a great response to this. The jewelry's great. We've put together a little capsule store of jewelry that features green for for NAMI and for mental health. So it's kind of a cool opportunity to get some jewelry that means something to you. For example, Kate Edelson, our walk manager, recently left the organization on to greener pastures, and we bought her a little green heart necklace from Kendra Scott to remember us by. So take a look at that. We hope you'll take a look at that. So, okay, I think, oh, we're pretty full. This is great. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker. We're very excited to have our speaker this evening, and it's such a fascinating topic, really. So please welcome Victoria Espinosa. She's a licensed clinical social worker and qualified supervisor and a registered play therapist supervisor. She received her master's degree in social work from Florida State University and has more than 9 years of experience working with kids, teens, and young adults. Victoria is experienced in working with children and young adults from dissimilar and diverse backgrounds, and her experience includes treating clients with developmental disabilities, complex trauma histories, and social and emotional challenges, as well as being experienced in treating clients diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism, which is really interesting. We get a lot of questions about that because there is a high amount of mental health conditions among that populations. Victoria is trained in a wide range of therapeutic approaches and has completed training on providing neurodiversity affirming and multicultural affirming therapy to clients. She's passionate about bringing the therapeutic powers of play into each session with her clients. She recognizes that each person is capable of eliciting change from within, and the therapist's role is to facilitate that process of change with their clients. Victoria's practices with Buxani Care, where she also addresses teen-specific issues such as teen anxiety disorder, teen depression, and teen low self-esteem. So all very important areas where we see the beginnings of mental health conditions. And if we can address those early on, we know it has a huge impact. So Victoria's going to talk to us tonight about the importance of play during therapy with children. Thank you so much, Victoria.
Of course. Hello. It's nice to see you all here today. Okay, so the importance of play and working with young children. This is going to be a brief overview of what play therapy is, what it looks like, and how it can benefit young children who are engaging in this therapeutic process. Next slide. I love this quote. Birds fly, fish swim, and children play. Children are inherently made to play. Next slide. So this is just a brief definition of why we use play and play therapy, right? Because play therapy is to children what talk therapy is to adults. Play is a natural part of childhood and is important in child development. Therapists use play therapy to help children express what is troubling them when they are not able to find the words to express their feelings. So, essentially, what does this mean, right? It means that a child is not going to come into session, especially a young child, 4, 5, 6, and tell you in detail what their presenting problem is. They're not going to sit down and say, hey, therapist, right now I'm feeling incredibly anxious about my parents' divorce, and it's causing me to engage in these behaviors. They're not cognitively able to do that. Even if they have words and language, they're not going to be able to express their experiences and their emotions to the level verbally that they need to receive therapeutic benefit, right? So in play therapy, toys are like the child's words, and play is the child's language. The positive, trusting relationship that develops between therapist and child during play therapy sessions provides a safe, emotional experience necessary for healing. And we're going to talk about later on, like how the toys are the child's words. Next slide, please. Through play therapy, children can show us what they have experienced, their feelings and reactions to what they have experienced, what they want and or need, and how they perceive themselves. Play helps children organize and develop a sense of control. So, what is common to see in play therapy is a child playing out their experiences. So, let's say, for example, a child was in a recent car crash and they're feeling very anxious about going into the car, right? It's not uncommon to see a child pick up a toy car and drive it all around the room and have it crash into things. Play therapy is a little bit repetitive in that way because they're working through that experience. So they're going to do that over and over and over again. And what we're looking for when we're engaging in this therapeutic process with the child is to see a variation, a difference in that play narrative. And once we see that difference, we know progress is happening. Okay. Feelings and reactions are expressed through play, with the child, for example, who was in the car crash, they might show a lot of anger, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of doubt. They might be questioning, like, how can this even happen? Especially since I was with my parents, like all those things. They're able to play out what they want and what they need. So in the car crash example, maybe all they need is a reassuring hug. Maybe all they want is just to have someone tell them you're safe in the car. And we find that out through our play interactions with the child and how they perceive themselves. It's very common in play therapy for a child to identify with a toy, and that toy will be who that child is throughout their therapeutic journey. And sometimes that toy changes. What's very common is little boys picking superheroes and little girls picking whatever. But the little boys picking superheroes is very common from what I've seen in my practice. Next slide. Okay, so about play therapy, right? Why do we do this? Because research suggests that change occurs in approximately 20 sessions, and the optimal numbers of play therapy is between 30 and 35. So essentially, it happens faster with the play, right? The therapeutic process with play therapy, depending on the variables of the situation, depending on the presenting problem, depending on the parents' involvement, the school's involvement, is how long that therapeutic process is going to take. Okay. And as it says here, the number of sessions varies on different factors, as I just discussed. Next slide. Okay. Play therapy has been proven to help children in a variety of ways, including processing traumatic or disturbing events, like I mentioned earlier with the car crash, supporting emotional growth. So in this, right, we work on, and we're going to talk about the therapeutic powers of play, but we work on a variety of skills in the playroom. We work on the child being comfortable with being independent and doing things on their own. We work on the child working through large emotions in a therapeutic way, very similar to how a talk therapist will help a client with therapeutic silence, or they'll help a client by helping them identify their emotions related to this. Okay. It improves concentration because of the materials, such as board games and such as open play materials like cars and dolls. The client has to remember their play narrative. They have to focus on that board game. It enhances memory because we are playing out what we need to play out, right? And a lot of times you have abreactions, which is you are having a negative experience, you're playing it out in a positive way. So we're able to take that negative experience and make it more positive, shed a positive light on it. problem-solving skills, they have to do stuff on their own in the playroom to a certain extent. Improving social skills and building self-esteem. Next slide. So ideally, the play therapist is going to be objective and flexible, does not judge or evaluate. They're open-minded, they're patient, they have a high tolerance for ambiguity because we do not interpret the play. They get to play what they need to play to feel better, okay? We're future-minded, personal courage, being sincere is a big one because children can tell when you're not. Being personally secure and have a sense of humor. Personally secure is funny because kids will tell you exactly what they're thinking and they're feeling about you in the moment. And as a therapist, it's not about you, it's about your client. Next slide. Okay, so this is the big one. These are the therapeutic powers of play. These have been researched extensively. Play therapy is an evidence-based practice, and it is these 4 categories that make play so therapeutic in our process. It facilitates communication, self-expression, access to the unconscious, direct teaching and indirect teaching, depending on the modality of play therapy that is being used. Fosters emotional wellness. It's cathartic. You have abreactions, you have positive emotions, counter conditioning fears, making a fear less scary. Stress inoculation, coping strategies, right? And stress management. It also enhances social relationships because for play therapy to work, you have to have a therapeutic relationship with your client, right? And it also works on things like attachment, social competence, and empathy. And it'll increase personal strengths, right? Because we're creative and we're problem solving. We're resilient. We have moral development happening in these sessions. Accelerated psychological development. My child has the vocabulary of a therapist because we do play therapy all the time, and every child who leaves the play therapy room has an extensive therapeutic vocabulary. Self-regulation and working on self-esteem as well. Next slide, please. Okay. So what does non-directive play therapy look like? And here's like a brief definition of what that is. Unconditional acceptance and positive regard for the child, belief that children can direct their own healing, and that the relationship is the key. The play therapy process can be viewed as a relationship between the therapist and the child in which the child utilizes play to explore his or her personal world, and also to make contact with the therapist in a way that is safe for the child. Play therapy provides an opportunity for children to live out, during play, experiences and associated feelings. This process allows the therapist to experience in a personal and interactive way the inner dimensions of the child's world. The therapeutic relationship is what provides dynamic growth and healing for the child. Next slide, please. So our big non-directive play therapy modality is child-centered play therapy. And essentially, what that other slide means, right, is that when the child comes into the play therapy room, they are in charge of their own healing process, right? The limitations placed in child-centered play therapy usually sound like, you cannot hurt me, you cannot hurt you, and you cannot hurt my things, right? And other boundaries for inappropriate behaviors pop up, but usually those are not needed in the therapeutic relationship because the child naturally understands that this is therapy. So they're gonna play out what needs to be played out in the room. And they understand that it's therapeutic because of the way that we interact with them when they're playing. So in talk therapy, when you have an adult client telling you about their experiences and their feelings, a lot of times the therapist will reflect what they're saying, right? They'll reflect the content of what they're saying. They'll reflect the emotions of what they're saying. They're going to paraphrase what they're saying. They're going to ask for clarity. And we have that in play therapy as well. We track what they're doing, right? Which is our version of asking for clarification and also like letting them know that we're present with them, right? We reflect content of the narrative of the play, right? We reflect the feelings associated that are coming up with the play, and we leave room for anything to happen within that dynamic. Sometimes the children will talk about their experiences and sometimes they will not. So essentially, as a non-directive play therapist, we are not directing the child to do anything. There are no activities. There are no expectations. It's viewed as the child is not the problem. It's viewed as we're helping this child achieve the goals that they want to achieve. Next slide, please. Okay, so directive play therapy builds relationships, explores issues and experiences, promotes insight, and identifies new ways of interacting. In some situations, play therapists may use directive strategies such as games, puppets, toys, etc., and sessions may have specific goals or topics that will be addressed in session. The therapist also may have to get involved in the child's play to direct the story. So essentially, what this is these therapists, directive play therapists, plan before their sessions. They have activities set out. They have certain things that they want to do with the play with the child. They will direct the child to, as it said, like maybe put on a puppet show about how their day was at school if they're struggling with issues at school, right? So whereas non-directive is, hey, if this kid is having a hard time in school, he's going to come in and he's going to just naturally play out with the puppets what's going on at school, right? Directive is, I know you're having an issue at school and here are the puppets and I would like you to play them out. Okay. Next slide. So modalities of directive play therapy, right? You have cognitive behavioral play therapy, you have Adlerian play therapy, you have object relations, narrative play therapy, solution focused play therapy, prescriptive play therapy, and then these are kind of subcategories that kind of were created from the main theories of play therapy. You have trauma play and you have theraplay. Okay. Essentially, there's a spectrum from non-directive to directive, and I feel the most directive is cognitive behavioral play therapy because that's all activities, that's all like being engaged in working through your emotions with worksheets, jumping. I've seen it all with cognitive play therapy. And then on the other extreme, you have child-centered play therapy, which is no expectations, right? And then as you go on, you'll have other theories and modalities in there, okay? Next slide. And these are the historically significant theories: Adlerian, child-centered, cognitive behavioral, developmental with Viola Brody. She's incredible. Ecosystemic, filial, it's irrelevant and historically important for us as play therapists, right? But it's not a theory. So child-centered comes from Carl Rogers' person-centered. Adlerian is Adlerian. Gestalt is Gestalt. Jungian is Jungian. Theraplay is interesting because it's created specifically to help children who have experienced something very traumatic in their lives. And it's an attachment-based theory. Sorry, not theory, but way of practicing. So, next slide. Okay, so without the process of play therapy, it always starts at the beginning and building a relationship, despite what the theory of practice is that you're using, okay? And then there's going to be language added to that, depending on the developmental level of the child, okay? And then you're going to have the cognitive operations after that. So essentially, we have a relationship. I feel good with you. We can talk about things if I'm developmentally able to talk to you about things, and then I'm able to apply those things, right, to what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, and heal from that. Okay. And the language sometimes doesn't come from the child, sometimes it comes from the therapist. The therapist is giving the child the language to help them heal. Next slide, please. Okay. So, the benefits of play therapy in early childhood development. You have emotional expression and regulation. Children often struggle to express their emotions verbally. Play therapy offers a nonverbal outlet for feelings such as anger, sadness, fear, and joy. By externalizing their emotions through play, children gain awareness and learn to regulate their feelings, building essential coping skills. So, an example of this, right, is if I have, let's say I have a 6-year-old in session, and this 6-year-old has a very hard time regulating their anger and their frustration. So they're gonna, if we're using child-centered, they're gonna come in and they're gonna choose on their own maybe a board game that has rules, that has direction, and that they have to follow, right? So if this client is having a hard time with their frustrated feelings, they're probably not going to be the best at following directions. So ideally, that's what the child would choose, something with a lot of rules and directions. And as they're engaging in this game of Don't Break the Ice, essentially it's like a little table, and inside you kind of put little white blocks in that game. And they're held together by tension, and you're each given a little hammer, and you have to go one by one to take the ice out from the little table. Okay. As they're doing that, maybe they begin to lose the game and they start to feel frustrated. So as a therapist, as a child-centered play therapist, what would happen is I would reflect that content. Okay, I would say, oh my gosh, this is getting really frustrated with you, for you, okay? And then I would model the behavior, right? I would be like, man, if I felt frustration, man, that's frustrating. And I would model a deep breath for them. And by the end of the session, what tends to happen is that child is engaging in deep breathing, okay? Directive is, okay, I see your frustration. Let's try and practice our breathing. And let's take a deep breath, and let's talk about the fun activities are like cooking breathing and dragon breathing. Pretend like you're smelling a cookie and breathe in real, real deep, and then breathe out. Pretend that you're a dragon. Pretend that you're setting the room on fire with your breath. Things like that. Boosting self-esteem and confidence in play. So it helps children feel accomplished and capable. Exploring and succeeding in play builds confidence, while positive reinforcement from the therapist strengthens their self-worth and resilience. In non-directive play therapy, we do not compliment the child. So if they are succeeding, what we say is, hey, I noticed that you're working really hard on that. We're more focused on the effort than the outcome, because the effort is really what we want to build upon, because that helps with the child's frustration level, if that makes sense. What does improving self-esteem and play therapy look like? It looks like I cannot open this Play-Doh without trying. They're not even trying to open the Play-Doh. And us saying in response, okay. And if they ask for us to open the Play-Doh, we say that's something you can do. That's something you can do to encourage them to try to do things on their own. Next slide, please. Once they realize they can do things on their own, they start to feel a lot more confident. Developing social skills. Interactive play teaches children important social skills like sharing, empathy, cooperation, and turn taking. These abilities help them form healthy relationships and navigate social settings more effectively. Yes, there are a lot of children who come in and want to play Candyland and pick up 4 cards in a row. So a therapeutic limit has to be set of, okay, this is a game where we take turns. A lot of children have a hard time following the rules of a game, and this would be more directive play therapy, right? And we would have to say, as the therapist, okay, you're having a hard time taking turns, right? And we would have to, play therapists are very creative. So we may have to play the there are no rules game, which is fun because then if there's no rules, anyone can win, which frustrates the child further. And then they're more able to engage in the activity and follow the rules, which is always really sweet to see. And it supports cognitive growth. Play encourages problem solving, critical thinking, and creativity, promoting cognitive and development. Yeah, cognitive development. My bad. Therapists use structured play activities to enhance memory, attention, and executive functioning. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, processing trauma and grief. Children coping with trauma or loss often struggle to express their emotions. Play therapy provides a safe place where storytelling, art, and role playing help them process their experiences and develop healthy coping strategies. Okay, so kind of like with the car crash example, they're going to play out these experiences, right? Grief and loss in play therapy looks a little different. It looks like them processing what death is, right? So it could look like them shooting a toy and burying it. It can look like them burying the toy in the sand and saying that it's gone forever. Really interesting to see examples of grief and loss in the playroom. It helps manage anxiety and behavioral issues. Play therapy is effective in reducing anxiety and behavioral challenges. It provides a structured, supportive environment where children can understand their emotions, develop coping skills, and improve emotional and behavioral well-being. Kind of as I discussed earlier, we're identifying emotions in the playroom and we are noticing behavioral issues. So when we bring that to the client's attention, right, they have to make a choice. I feel like therapeutic limits comes in handy in this regard because if they are having severe behavioral issues in the playroom, the therapist is very strict on what can and cannot happen. A big one is hands are not for hitting, right? We use our hands for playing instead. A therapeutic limit in play therapy looks like we don't say no. And we offer alternatives when necessary. So we're not going to say, don't hit me, or no, you cannot hit me. We're going to say hands are not for hitting. And that kind of softens the blow and keeps it more therapeutic. Next slide, please. Okay. Before we get to questions, I kind of wanted to show a example of a therapeutic toy and what it would look like to come into play therapy with me. This is Meebie, spelled Meebie. He is a therapeutic doll. And as you can see, he's just a purple fuzzy guy and he doesn't have a face. And that is because you give him a face. And children like to come in here and they like to give maybe a face to reflect how they're feeling, right? So in child-centered, they can give him a variety of faces, right? They can, and they do it on their own, and they're very interesting. We've seen faces with everything going on. So let me show you a little bit more about these. As you can see, you have a broken heart, you have the fire, you have eyebrows for expression, you have these kind of sad eyes, you have these almond shaped ones, you have the big round ones for excitement or shock or fear, you have these squinted ones, you have eyes closed, and you have these narrow ones. On this side, we have a variety of mouths for a variety of facial expressions. And you have some really fun things. You have tears, you have blood, you have band-aids, you have a broken heart, and you have a full heart right here. Okay. I have seen children make a face for Meebie and they talk about his heart being broken, or Meebie's really sad, or Meebie's really angry, or Meebie's really happy because something wonderful happened that they want to share, right? And kind of alluding to the directive versus non-directive. Non-directive is they make the face on their own. I don't tell them anything. Directive is, hey, I'm wondering how you're feeling. Can you make a face and show me what that face looks like? And can we talk about it? And that's him. Okay, I think I'm ready for questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Victoria, for that fascinating talk. I have a few questions myself, but what we're going to ask is that everyone put your questions in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and read them out. Let me just make sure that we don't have any yet. So I think so. Well, we have a question in the chat. How do you explain play therapy to parents? And I think that's a great question because I'm a layperson. I'm a parent and a grandparent, and my experience with play therapy is I brought one of my children to see a therapist, and the therapist played a game with him because he was more likely to talk and answer questions if his attention was on something else. So he brought up the questions during the game that they were playing, and he was able to engage him that way. But so when you're explaining this to lay people like me, and I know you just explained the whole thing, but it was a little bit in an academic way.
Mhm.
So I guess the question is, like, why? Why do you use play therapy? Can you expand on that a little bit?
For sure, yeah. So how I address this with my parents is I tell them, hey, welcome. I give them my introduction and I tell them this is why play therapy is helpful for your child. And I like to compare it to talk therapy a lot because these parents know what talk therapy is and they understand what talk therapy is, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, kind of like how if you're having a problem, you're going to talk about that over and over and over again until you feel better, right? With your therapist. And your therapist is trained to listen and to respond accordingly to what you are saying. In the same way that that therapist is trained to respond accordingly in a therapeutic manner, that's how I respond to the child who's engaging in that play. Okay. And that play, if they have something that's on their mind, is going to be repetitive. They're going to play it out over and over and over and over again. I also like to tell, sometimes parents kind of feel bad because I'm here working with their children and dealing with all their big feelings and all their hard experiences. And they come up to me and they tell me, well, I can't do that for my kid. And I say, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to sit there and to watch this happening. Sometimes it's very heartbreaking. Sometimes it's very exciting or it's very escalated. And we hold space for the child in that way. In the same way that a talk therapist holds space for their client when they're feeling large emotions. Was that helpful?
Definitely helpful. And we do have a question here. Do you meet with the parents before and after each session? So what is the parents' role in this?
Yes. So I call parents partners in the playroom because we need to collaborate to know what's going on, right? Standard practice is you meet with a parent for young children, you meet with a parent one-on-one to kind of assess where the child is at. The parent tells you, hey, these are the goals that, I think my son needs from therapy. And you have that in the back of your mind while you're engaging in play therapy with the child.
So we're talking about what are your conversations with the parents? So you set up the goals first.
Yes. And once the goals have been established, what we do is we do every 6 weeks a checkup. So I let the parent know how the therapeutic process is progressing, what we're working on. A lot of times, from my experience with Muksani counseling care specifically, it is like school-related issues, it's anxiety. Maybe the parent needs help in navigating a developmental disability like autism, things of that nature. So there's a lot of psychoeducation when meeting with the parents on child development, on what is play, and on, what is happening with their child while they're here in the room with me.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So another question we have is how would you go about engaging in play therapy with a client who struggles with attention span like ADHD?
Oh, those are my favorite kids. Um, they are very hyperactive, right? They have ADHD. So you meet the child where they're at, so you enter the child's world, right? And what the goal is, what the expectation is with time is to kind of lift them up naturally, help them find that their strengths, help them build their confidence so that they can increase their attention span, so that they can be a little less hyperactive. So if I'm initially meeting with a child that has ADHD and they need to run around the room, I'm going to go into a more directive style play therapy. I'm going to say, hey, instead of running around the room, let's play catch, because what I'm seeing with that child is that they need movement to regulate their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They need their whole body to be moving to regulate their emotions. So I'll play catch with the child. Sometimes the child wants to catch the stuffed animal or the ball in the air and slam onto the couch. And that's usually where I start with the ADHD child, right? And then slowly, as they come in here and they realize it's safe to be hyperactive, it's safe to move my body, it's safe, I'm going to get my needs met in this room. They're able to engage in higher level activities, right? So we'll go from playing catch and throwing ourselves on the couch to trying a board game, right? Or maybe they want to play something out if they're younger. Maybe they want to use the puppets or they want to play with the Barbies or, they want to do kitchen time. And, we go for as long as they can go. And a lot of times, once they're at that stage, they jump around from activity to activity. So, helping the child kind of like focus on each individual activity by being enthusiastic and encouraging in a therapeutic manner while they're on each activity.
Okay, so let me ask you this. With ADHD, we know it's common for those children to develop anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So is this kind of work help to prevent developing anxiety or to help them to better understand that and deal with that in a constructive way?
Yes. A lot of
Mhm.
times, so I believe that if you have ADHD, you inherently have trauma, right? Because you're born into a world that does not really, it wasn't made for you, okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, so the clients come in and they have anxiety because they're told no, and they're told that they're misbehaving, and they're told that, you know, whatever they're doing to get their bodily needs met is inappropriate for the setting that they're in. So a lot of times this work destigmatizes that. Like it's okay to move your body, but we're going to find a more appropriate way to move our body. And that's never inherently expressed. That's something that just happens with time. Um, and then, while we're working on that, I've noticed that the anxiety tends to dissipate. Some kids that have ADHD come in and they have just a tremendous amount of anxiety. So in those situations, we work on the anxiety first and on the ADHD second. Because if the anxiety is what's causing them the most distress in their life, we need to focus on that before we can focus on the ADHD.
That's fascinating to me. So another question, and then I have a follow-up question for this. What are common misunderstandings parents have about play therapy, and what do you wish they knew before starting?
The biggest one that I get is, I don't want you to play. The play is not working. I need you to teach them these skills. That is, it happens at least, once a month in my practice. And I wish parents understood that this is a process. Like any therapeutic relationship is a process. It takes time. Your kid has to be able to do certain things in order to heal. If I have a client who cannot even talk to me because they are so anxious, I need to build a relationship with that child. I have to work on their anxiety. I have to get them out of their bubble before I can teach them how to breathe. Before I can work on grounding strategies.
Right.
So,
So the importance of play is something that a lot of parents don't understand.
correct.
Okay, okay, I mean that's a whole nother that's a whole nother, okay, so now I have several follow-up questions. So one of them is um and I will say, and I don't know about the other people on the call, but I was a parent and now I have the luxury of being a grandparent, so I get to observe. And one of the things I realized is that as a parent, I made assumptions about what it was that was driving my children's feelings and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd see them being anxious and I would apply probably my own anxiety, right? Oh, they must be anxious about this. And so then I try to say, don't worry, right? We're not gonna drive off the bridge. That's not gonna happen. We're fine. But then I realize now with my grandchildren that I don't know when they're anxious, I don't know what they're anxious about. And I don't and so I'm trying to fix something that may not be broken. So is that like a common misunderstanding with parents that their assumptions of what is driving a child's behavior may be way off?
Sometimes, so what I see in my clinical practice is sometimes the parents have goals for their child that are not going to be therapeutically effective for the child. So
Mhm.
let's say like the parent wants me to work on anxiety, but really what the child needs is they need to be understood and accepted, right? And that's what's causing the anxiety.
Right.
Um, and sometimes that doesn't translate well to the parent. I feel like once the child is making progress within the play therapy process, then the parents are more likely to hear, hey, they just need a little bit more understanding from you. They need you to be a little bit more accepted of their need to move or of their need to, I don't know, like drink juice when it's not juice time.
Right. Okay.
Listen.
That's a great example because that's very real. Drinking juice when it's not juice time. Because as adults, we're like, no, you don't drink, you don't eat dinner when it's not dinner time.
Mhm.
So my other question here is about age and at what ages. So, you've talked about all the way from very young and children who are nonverbal and potentially even older children that may be neurodivergent and nonverbal.
Mhm.
So, at what age do you stop with play therapy? Because I'm thinking this would work great on me.
Yeah. Um, I offer it to the adults that I see, and sometimes they utilize it and sometimes they don't. However, there are research studies being done in elderly populations, especially with those that have dementia, on the therapeutic powers of play and how that's helping them.
Oh, that's very interesting. But typically, if it, say a 14-year-old comes in, is that someone that you would start with play therapy or it would not so much?
It depends on the child. Um,
Hmm.
so if the child is cognitively and emotionally able to engage in talk therapy and that's their preference, we would do that. Sometimes, even if they're not aware, they're not able to engage in that process, right? And this sometimes happens with adults too, where they're like stuck and they can't talk about what they need to talk about. And in those examples, I will utilize play therapy, but it looks different, right? I'm not tracking what they're doing with their play. That would be weird. Oh, I see. You're picking up a card and you're putting it down. A 14-year-old would probably like leave my room if I did that. um, what so it's more relaxed. There's a lot of me talking about myself to build rapport in these situations. Like, yeah, like I'm frustrated too, buddy. Like, and it's usually card games, or we have this thing called sand tray where it's just like a big box of sand and children put in little toys to make a picture in the sand. And that in itself is its own, presentation. They tend to gravitate towards those types of activities, and that helps them work on their anxiety and
Older
other
children.
issues. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I see we only have a few minutes left. Any other questions anyone wants to drop in the chat? Okay, I think so. Just one more question. There was one slide that showed a very young child stacking blocks, and I was very curious. Okay, so if you are watching a 3-year-old that's, verbal but not obviously can't describe what they're feeling, how does what would you do with stacking blocks? Like, how would that?
How would that look in session?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would, depending on, and I think this is important to note, depending on the verbal level of the child, is
Hmm.
depending on whether or not we use descriptive words to um, use during the play. So traditional child-centered play therapy, which is very effective in treating younger children, You don't label things. Oh, you picked that up. Oh, I see you put it on top of that one. Oh, you picked another one up. Oh, I see you put it on top of that one. However, if they struggle to know what things are, if they struggle to communicate what they want and what they need, I will label the item. Oh, I see you have a rectangular block. I see you're putting it on the table. Oh, now you're picking up a cinder shaped block and you're putting that on top of the rectangle. Wow, you're just like having the enthusiasm, having the presence, um, and letting them know what they're doing is an absolute great time. Sometimes I tell the parents that I'm kind of like a clown in the room because I want them to know that I'm in their corner, that I understand what they're doing, and that it's very important to me.
Interesting. So Margie commented that Play-Doh helps for her. Play-Doh is great. I play with Play-Doh with my grandchildren all the time. Um, so okay, we're out of time. Thank you again, Victoria, so much for this. Really fascinating. I think this has probably gotten a lot of people thinking. We will have the recording of this up on our YouTube channel. So anyone that attended tonight, if you want to share that with people that you know, we'll be sending that out. We can send that out to everyone that attended this. And there will be a link to it on our website. Um, and yeah, I think this has just been very enlightening to one. I'm a big proponent of play. We play in our office a little bit. And so as adults, we find it very helpful. And so, I think a little more play in the lives of our children would be a good idea. So we've got some great thank you uh, comments coming in, and thank you, Victoria. And please, anyone, if you need help, reach out to NAMI. All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a great night.
You too.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.